Welcome to Studio 23 Nashville with your hosts Jennifer Herron and Brian Cumming, and today's very special guest, country music legend and Grand Ole Opry member Jim Glaser.
Welcome to Studio 23 Nashville. I am Brian Cumming. Our usual co-host, Jennifer Herron, is not here today, but we have a wonderful co-host who's also been a guest on the show, a great songwriter from Alabama, Mr. Bobby Tomberlin.
Hey, well, it's good to be here. What a pleasure. I appreciate you asking me to fill in for Jennifer. I've got big shoes to fill.
Some high heels.
Yeah, high heels to fill.
Well, you've also got a very special guest here,
Oh,
a piece of country music history.
I was really excited, number one, to do your show, but then when I found out who the guest was, well, I really got excited because this gentleman, we've done probably over 100 shows together on the road, played all over the place, and what a legendary songwriter artist. He hates it when I brag about him.
You had me on your show when you were, what, 11 or 12, your radio show?
Right, I was a disc jockey. We talked about
I was
that
that young.
a couple of weeks ago, and I interviewed him for the radio, and now here we are doing this interview.
Yeah.
But no, this gentleman, I mean, he was, you know, a part of the group with his brothers, Tom Paul and the Glaser brothers. He's had solo hits. He's written for, oh my gosh, we'll talk about more of that later, but everyone you can imagine, Johnny Cash, Waylon, Marty Robbins, even the rapper T.I. sampled one of his songs recently. But background singing, publishing, you name it, Jim Glaser.
Well, thank you. I was sitting there thinking, have I done all that really? I don't remember most of it.
Well, it all started on a farm in Nebraska.
That's right. My daddy had a 1,200-acre farm, and it was a farm, too. It wasn't a garden spot. It was the way Daddy took care of it, but it was a working farm. And
So you did a lot of plowing and tractor
and we all had chores morning and night, taking care of the animals, and my job was taking care of the chickens. And you know, I still am not a fan of chickens today. My mom could go in that chicken coop and she'd go, caw, 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 and then chickens would all just gather around her feet. Yeah. I'd go in there and they'd just scatter and fly and squawk. They didn't like me.
But you did grow up playing music and singing together with your family.
Right, we did. Every night we practiced, no matter what time we got in off the farm.
Really?
We practiced. Dad bought us a tape recorder way back there at some point, and we learned to balance our harmonies ourselves on one mic, which really turned out to be very beneficial.
Oh, yeah. That's a classic bluegrass technique.
Yeah, right.
And so you were telling me just a few minutes ago the story about how the family, as a group of singing brothers, met Marty Robbins, and that changed your life.
Right. Well, nobody ever toured Nebraska, and so we never got to see anybody until Marty Robbins, who'd already had White Sport Coat and several hits, was booked in Grand Island, Nebraska. It was 60 miles away. So we all got in the car and went down to watch his show, and we were watching his matinee because we had a show that night too. And anyway, during the intermission of the show, Dad went back and tapped on the door to go backstage, and he said, where's Marty Robbins? And the guy said, over there, and just let him go in. You can imagine doing that now. And Dad went over to Marty's door and knocked on it, and Marty came to the door, and Dad said, I want you to listen to my boys sing. And Marty said, okay. I always thought he felt there's nothing to do in Grand Island, Nebraska anyway. So.
Might as well listen to a bunch of singing brothers.
And we sang him some songs, and surprising, he liked us, said if we would come to Nashville, he'd start a record label and record us and take us on the road and all those wonderful things. So.
And that happened, huh?
That was in the fall of '57, and we moved to Nashville in January of '58.
And you were on the road with Marty.
Yeah, right away. I remember one of those first trips, we were driving, Marty traveled in two cars, and I was in the first car with him, and I was looking out the window. We were in Arkansas, and I saw all the fields and everything, and it was getting close to evening, and I thought if I was on the farm, I'd have to go take care of those chickens. But I don't have to take care of those chickens anymore. It's a great feeling.
Great. That is great. So the Glaser brothers were a backup group for Marty, vocal group.
Right. We opened his show, and we did backing on a song or two. And after we sang on El Paso, then we had that in the show as well.
Oh yeah. Now you were telling me that while you were riding in the car with Marty, he was sharing with you the early ideas for El Paso.
Right. Well, he didn't write them in the car. He wrote them at home. But then we'd get in the car and head out on the road, and he'd sing us the latest verse or whatever. It took them a long time to finish it, and I didn't really know how it was going to turn out. I was kind of hoping Felina would get shot in the end of it, but she didn't. And Bobby Sykes was in the car, and he and I put harmony on everything Marty would sing, and Marty liked it, and so we got to do the session, you know.
Oh, that's great. That's great. And you were also telling us that when El Paso was released, that you had the B-side of that single.
Tom Paul and I had the B-side, a song called Running Gun. And in those days, you know, if it came out on a 45 RPM record, and there was the big song on the A-side, and then the one nobody ever heard of on the B-side. But the B-side sold as many as the A-side.
Yeah, there's something about the physics of vinyl there. Yeah.
It worked really well.
Well, I think that's called a Running Gun.
Yes.
Why don't we play it?
All righty. Tom Paul called me into the room one night. It's when we lived in a house out in Goodlettsville, and he said, "Help me with this song." And he sang me like a little of it, and so we finished the song. I rode out of Kansas City going south to Mexico. I was running, dodging danger, left the girl that I loved so. Far behind lay Kansas City and the past that I had earned. 20 notches on my 6-gun marked the lessons I had learned. Many times I sold my fast gun for a place to lay my head, till the nights began to haunt me by the men that I left dead. Couldn't stand it any longer with this life that I'd begun, so I said goodbye to Jeannie and became a running gun. I rode into Amarillo as the sun sank in the west, my thoughts in Kansas City with the girl that I loved best. How I smiled and kissed her gently and then turned away to go. Said I'd send for her to meet me when I reached old Mexico. I had barely left the saddle and my foot just touched the ground, when a cold voice from the shadows told me not to turn around. Said he knew about my fast gun, knew the price paid by the law, challenged by a bounty hunter, so I turned around to draw. Well, I knew someday I'd meet him, for his hand like lightning flashed, my own gun still in leather as his bullet tore its path. As my strength is slowly fading, I can see him walk away, and I know that where I lie tonight, he too must lie someday. Now the crowd is quickly gathering, but my eyes are growing dim, and my thoughts return to Jeannie and the home that we had planned. Oh, please tell her, won't you, mister, that she's still the only one. But a woman's love is wasted when she loves a running gun. A running gun. A running gun. Bum, bum.
Oh, man.
Studio 23 Nashville presents Studio 23 Nashville Live, November 10th at World Music Nashville, featuring 2010 European Album of the Year and 2015 Country Music Association of Texas Artist of the Year, Bobby Marquez. Singer-songwriter extraordinaire Steve Kahn. From the 70s supergroup Orleans, Lance Hoppen. Nashville's favorite Cajun Americana artist, Les Kerr. Country Christian artist, Cherie Pepper. Pianist to the Stars, Mark T. Jordan, and jazz singer-songwriter Allison Kerr, plus an all-star band. Tickets are just $15 and are available now at www.brownpapertickets.com. Just search the site for Studio 23 Nashville or World Music Nashville. Studio 23 Nashville Live is made possible by the Law Office of Lavelle Glanton, Expedia Cruise Ship Center Nashville West, and World Music Nashville. Hickman County, Tennessee. It feels a lot like home, or how home should feel. Come by, sit a spell. Soak in the goodness that inspired Minnie Pearl to write about this special place. Visit Hickman County, Tennessee's hidden treasure.
Well, we got quite an adventure to discuss here. Marty Robbins in the 50s, and then Tom Paul and the Glaser Brothers had some hits as artists.
Right. Marty said if we'd come to Nashville, he'd start a record company for us, Robbins Records, which he did, and take us on the road with him. Now, we went to Nashville in the fall of '57 and recorded our first record for him, and he released it. And that same fall, the Amateur Hour, Arthur Godfrey's Amateur Hour came, went on tour and came to Omaha, and Dad took us down to interview for him, and we got on the show.
On Arthur Godfrey.
So that fall we went on the show and sang our first Robbins records.
Yeah.
And then in January we moved on down to Nashville.
Describe Music Row in Nashville when you arrived.
Well, of course, what's Music Row now wasn't there. The music industry was based up on 7th Avenue.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
In the, what was that building? Anyway, Marty's office was there, and Tree Publishing, and several. And Monument had a studio upstairs. When I was on Monument, I recorded there. And then Marty bought a house out on 19th and set up his office, and because Owen Bradley already had a studio built out there, and then people just started moving out. It's cool.
Out from 7th to 16th
Amazing.
and the 17th and 19th
Amazing.
Avenue. Wow. So did Marty take responsibility for your recording? Was he producing, or was it his?
Well,
Who was involved?
he came to some of the first sessions, but once Robbins Records didn't make it, so we were without a label for a few years, and then Owen Bradley signed us on what was Decca Records at those days.
Yeah.
And of course, Marty wasn't involved in that anymore after that.
Yeah. And then you mentioned Monument too. That was a few years later.
Yeah, I recorded on Monument as a solo artist. Ray Stevens produced me.
Wow. It was, and Fred Foster, was he the main?
Yeah, he was
guy?
the guy, and Dolly was on that. Dolly Parton and I had a record released in the same envelope.
Oh,
So that's one of my big stories.
Oh, that's close. So you were like Porter Wagner for a split second there.
Oh yeah, Dolly and I are close friends. We had a record released in the same envelope. Hers hit, mine didn't. But I mean,
Yeah.
At what point did you become Grand Ole Opry members?
Well, that was a weird thing too. We started being on the Opry right away when Marty brought us down, but the Opry was weird about signing it, and they finally agreed to sign Tom Paul. They was hesitant to sign the whole group because their idea was that groups suddenly broke up sometimes and they didn't know how that would go. So since the group was Tom Paul and the Glaser Brothers, they did it that way.
And Tom Paul was the oldest.
Yeah,
Did he do most of the lead singing?
he did all the lead singing.
Oh, okay.
He couldn't sing harmony. Didn't care.
Well, that's
for
one
it.
way to become a lead singer. Yeah. Well, I have heard that the Glaser Brothers really deserve credit for pioneering the outlaw movement.
Well, that's Brother Tom Paul. Now, see, we broke up in '73, and Tom Paul was hanging around a lot with Willie Nelson and, and Waylon Jennings, and then they cut that Outlaw album, which was the biggest country album up to that time. You know? And that was the Outlaw movement, and of course we had a studio, and a lot of people, we got permission for a lot of artists to cut in our studio, and you couldn't do that before. If you were a Columbia artist, you cut in Columbia Studio. So that was...
Was it in Nashville?
Yeah. And that irritated some of the folks that I think were irritated through most of our career.
Well, it's amazing the people that recorded there. Bobby Bear, of course, Waylon cut his first really monster hit records there at the Glaser studio, and Kenny Rogers actually recorded a project, right?
Yes, he did.
And you had quite a group of characters too. Like who's the one guy, Kinky Friedman?
Yeah.
He actually
My
recorded
My brother
there.
Chuck managed him, and he did his first projects there.
You know, the interesting thing too with you guys, you really did. You changed the way the business, operated, because when Jim's told me before, when you guys came to town, like one of your first records, wasn't even you guys on the cover, right? Yeah. So you guys actually hired a photographer to do your album covers, and some of the other artists used your photographer too.
Yeah, on our first album was on MGM, and they did the cover in New York. There's a couple of models on there and walking around. And usually when they did country albums in those days, they would get a rail fence and a few bales of hay and a horse or a cow or whatever, and shoot a picture. And we didn't really care for that too much.
So you really were the first group to
groundbreaking, really,
to take that control.
Right.
So let's have a picture of us.
Yeah, right. Let's be on our album covers. And
that's interesting.
then we actually hired that photographer to work in our studio after a while. Great photographer, Bill Grind, and shot a lot of album covers and
For other artists
for
as
other
well.
artists. Yeah.
Did you all start a label?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
But you had
But you were
publishing,
involved.
amazing
Oh,
We
publishing.
had
right. That
publishing
was-
companies, published Gentle on My Mind, and some really
The
big
Glenn
songs.
Campbell version of the
Yeah.
John Hartford song.
What's the story on Gentle on My Mind?
Well, it depends on who you talk to, I suppose. But my story, mine and my wife, Jane, we got together with John Hartford and his wife and went to see a movie. Jane probably remembers what movie it was. And we came back home, and I remember we dropped them off at where they lived, and we went on home. And I learned the next day that Hartford got out his banjo and wrote 2 songs. One of them was Gentle on My Mind, and the other was one called The Simple Thing Is Love. And of course, I went home and went to bed. I always wondered about that.
And he recorded it before Glenn Campbell, though.
Yeah,
right?
he had a single, and he and Jerry Reed actually traveled around promoting the single record.
Really?
You could do that in those days, go to
Wow.
radio stations. And
But then, of course,
You mean-
Glenn Campbell. I mean,
Oh,
it
yeah.
just became
then
his
he, that's one of those
signature
things
song.
we didn't know about until it came out, and that's always a nice surprise. You know?
You were the publishers of the song and didn't
Yeah.
know that Glenn Campbell had
Well, it's
recorded
the
it?
same thing with Gary Puckett and Union Gap.
Oh, yeah, another great.
They cut a song, we didn't know anything about it.
That was Woman, Woman.
Yeah.
That you
Until-
co-wrote with
Jimmy
Payne.
Payne,
Yeah.
It's amazing
Yeah.
your songwriting. I mean, a
Yeah.
lot of people they don't realize how many legendary artists recorded Jim's songs. I mean, Johnny Cash, Marty Robbins, Waylon Jennings, Engelbert Humperdinck.
Really?
My gosh, the group Wilco,
Oh,
the
you
pop
just
group
said-
Wilco,
yeah.
Connie Smith, Skeeter Davis,
Liz Anderson.
Liz Anderson,
Yeah.
right? And
Skip, yes.
you know, one I always loved was the Warner Mac song, "Sitting in an All-Night Cafe." What's the story on that song?
Well, we were leaving for a date in Port Huron, Michigan after the opera. And I know we were touring at that time in my little gray Comet, which I don't see how we got all the people and their luggage and everything in it. But Warner Mac called and said, hey, I'm working that date too, can I ride up with you? So we all crammed in the car and took off after the opera. And I was driving, and I remember still where I was up, a couple hours outside of Louisville when I was listening to the radio, and all the songs seemed to be guys singing about having lost their woman and were drinking in some bar. And I thought, I wonder what you do if you lose your woman and you don't drink. And so just as a joke, I wrote All Night Cafe, and the next morning when I had it finished, we pulled into a truck stop. Tom Poe had to use the bathroom, and I said, hey, Warner, listen to the song. And I sang it thinking it was funny, and Warner said, I'll cut that song. Wow. And I remember later Tom Paul said, why didn't you show that song to me first? And I said, you were in the bathroom. What could I do?
That was a top 5 hit. Too.
Yeah, number 2, I think it
And
was.
Loretta Lynn recorded that song. Fair and
Hank
Young,
Snow.
Hank Snow, Bill Anderson. I'd love to hear that song.
Sitting in an all-night cafe in a booth back in the corner, making paper wads from napkins, throwing toothpicks on the floor. I got a problem I can't solve, so I'm gonna sit here till I figure out the reason why my baby doesn't love me anymore. Well, it can't be another woman, 'cause I've never looked at anyone as long as I've been knowing her, and that's a long, long time. Drank so many cups of coffee, bet you that I get an ulcer. Sitting in this all-night cafe with my baby on my mind. Sitting in an all-night cafe, listening to the jukebox playing. Overheard a waitress saying, wonder why he don't go home. Bet my baby's out with someone, laughing, dancing, and romancing. I'll bet she never thinks about me, sitting here alone. Well, it can't be another woman, 'cause I've never looked at anyone as long as I've been knowing her, and that's a long, long time. Drank so many cups of coffee, bet you that I'll get an ulcer. Sitting in this all-night cafe with my baby on my mind. Sitting in this all-night cafe with my baby on my mind.
Oh, man.
That is so
Because
nice.
you can tell by putting the word ulcer in the country song, but I was not thinking it was going to be ever considered seriously, you know.
Oh, that could get recorded again. I could totally hear a Dwight Yoakam arrangement, you know, or George
Well, the other thing
Strait.
about this song is you can sing like a whole verse on one breath, and it kind of sounds like the modern day thing when they
That's
just go on
true.
one breath.
Wow, no, it's timeless. Timeless.
You really wrote some classic stuff, and you were drawn into the whole idea of writing a song, putting it together, but in a way that you
Yeah,
heard,
right.
that
And
nobody else had done before.
I started writing before I left the farm even, and
Yeah.
I wrote a song that got recorded, never heard, but it was called Straight from Heaven. So I'd been doing it a long time, you know, and I continually tried to,
Were Tom, Paul, or Chuck as interested in writing as you?
not as much.
Yeah.
Chuck was really had a business mind, and he's the one that focused his attention on the publishing companies, and as a real result, John Hartford
Oh,
and
wow,
Jimmy
yeah.
Payne and all. And Tom Paul was like the business mind, you know. I remember lawyers called him on occasions and asked for advice. What would you do in this situation? Which I thought was really cool.
Wow. After Marty, you guys started singing for Johnny Cash, right?
We went on tour with Cash. First show we did with him was in Carnegie Hall.
Whoa.
And here I am, this
Wow.
22 or 23-year-old kid standing on the stage in Carnegie Hall, and I was very much aware that I was a little farm boy standing on the stage in Carnegie Hall. That was a lot of fun. It was great.
Whoa.
You were at the Ring of Fire recording session
Right.
too, right?
Then
Unbelievable history.
Johnny
right?
Cash, you know, was recording at Sun Studios in Memphis, and he had that sound. And when he came here and moved to Columbia, his records didn't have that sound. So he booked a studio there, the small Owen Bradley studio, the little studio, for a week. And we all went in there, and the Carter family came in, and he just started experimenting, trying to get his sound back. And one of the songs he did was Ring of Fire. He did a song that I'd written called Let Me Down Easy, which is nice, you know. Oh, thank you, Johnny.
So was Jack Clement involved in those sessions?
No, he wasn't involved in those. Now, Jack Clement came along. That was part of Tom Paul's business deals again. He got
really?
together with, I don't remember in what year, but I know it was probably in the late 60s sometime, and started producing us. Fascinating man.
Yeah.
Fascinating way he produced. We'd be overdubbing, especially Tom Paul, when he'd have him redo his solo voice.
Yeah.
And he'd do it, and he'd say, okay, do it again. And after about 10 times of doing that, I got to wonder, what did he do wrong? Okay, take it again. But he came out with really great sounding records.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, isn't Jack Clement the one who had the idea for the? No, it was for Ring of Fire, the trumpet part. That was the guy who managed Hank, right? The co-writer who co-wrote.
Oh, Merle Kilgore.
Yes. Is he the one?
I've
or
heard
was
2 or 3 stories. Yeah, I have
it-
heard.
Somebody
that.
had a dream.
Right. I think actually it was
Da-da-da-da-da.
Cash that had the dream. And he
Oh.
called Kilgore and he's like, you're not going to believe the dream I had. A dream that I heard Ring of Fire with these horns.
Yeah, the Mexican trumpet.
And Merle was like, sounds great.
Well, that was interesting. You know, he cut that in that week of sessions we did, and down in that little studio, and they didn't have great separation for
Yeah.
something like that, and those horns were really loud.
They were on the track.
And they tried a
Yeah.
couple of takes with it, and they said, no, it's not going to work. So they ran a microphone out the door, up the stairs to an office up there. And the horn players went up there, and they had a little speaker, and they played from up there. So,
An office. Oh
Unreal.
my gosh, isn't that great?
I love the song that Johnny recorded. Would you do a little bit of it?
oh,
Let Me Down Easy.
let's see.
This
This
is
guitar may not be in tune.
such a good song.
Ba-da-da. Is that the right key? Let's see, that's happened when I've gotten old here. My memory just went away, went on vacation, and waiting for it to come back. And it hasn't come back yet. Let me down easy if you must go. Why not deceive me? That won't hurt me so. Truth is so painful. Tell me a lie. Let me down easy, and I'll get by. Let me down easy for time's sake. Is it too much to ask when my heart's gonna break? I'm bound to lose you and bound to cry. Oh, let me down easy and I'll get by. Let me down easy and I'll get by. I don't know whether you noticed or not, but one thing happens to your voice as you get older, you lose notes off the top,
Yeah.
and you also lose some off the
Yeah.
bottom. So that song was supposed to be, let me down easy, and I
Yeah.
can't do it anymore. So.
Boy,
But Johnny could do it.
Sounded great, and he did the Marty Stewart TV show a couple of years ago, and you sang that song on
Yeah,
the show.
he asked for that song.
And I love the story where Marty gave you this gift from down at Manuel's. I just thought that was
Oh.
the coolest thing. The
He
suit.
did. He said, he sent me down to Manuel's. He said, I want you to get a suit. And I thought, well, I'll be working with him a lot. I'll go get it. And got down there, and he knew all about it and measured me and made the suit and everything. And Marty paid for it. So I got this
Yeah.
beautiful suit in my closet, which since I don't work that much anymore.
But you do wear it on stage
Sure.
from time to time.
Yeah, I have.
I'm just so glad you did start working again, because there was a long period where you didn't work. And I would see you from time to time, and I thought, oh my gosh, one of the greatest voices in the business. And then all of a sudden, you appeared on Country's Family Reunion, and,
Right.
and people were aware of you that had never heard you, and then a lot of your fans saw you. And next thing you know, you're doing the Marty Stewart Show, Larry's Country Diner, the Grand Ole Opry again, doing some road dates. And
Right.
I'm so glad
Well, that was
happened.
a big turnaround. When I lost my record contract in the late 80s, I couldn't get another deal. I'd call people that I knew well, and I said, I just had a chart record. Yeah, I know, but our label doesn't want us to hire anyone younger than 28. Or what was it? Older than 28. I
Older
guess
than
they were trying.
28.
That's when they were trying to make country music appeal to teenagers, and it made me think of when I was trying to get a deal back in the '60s. They said we're not signing anybody younger than 28. So,
It came around.
so then there wasn't any
Yeah.
place for me to work. There wasn't any interest. And then by the late '90s and going into this century, people were missing the old country, and
Yeah.
classic country became a type of music and radio stations, and I started getting called, and I said, yes, I will work.
So glad that happened.
Yeah, it's been great, really, and for all the country fans that loved that kind of country, for them to have a source of that music again, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Great.
Now you had, during this very illustrious career, a #1 country single that no other Glaser brother achieved that particular distinction as a solo artist.
Yes, true.
Do you still do that song?
You know, I thought today when I was getting ready to do the show, I thought I really should, and I don't remember the lyrics to it anymore.
You're getting to me
You're
again.
getting to me again.
#1 independent label, unheard of at that time.
Really?
It never got the
Congratulations.
response on shows. Not and the other
Yeah.
one that followed it, If I Could Only Dance With You, got played a lot more and remembered a lot more. So when people didn't remember it on the shows, I just stopped doing it.
Boy.
I can't get over too how many hit records you've sang background on. John Snyder, you know, from the Dukes of Hazzard,
Yes.
he had several #1s, and I heard him say the other day, yeah, Jim Glaser sang the harmony with me on my #1s. I've been around enough to know, and Country Girl. But you sing harmony with, wow, Lefty Frizzell, George Jones, Hank Williams Jr., right?
Right.
And
And then I worked in vocal groups too.
and Elvis.
In with the group. We were supposedly on an Elvis session. Now, that didn't manifest itself until about 3 or 4 years ago when I started getting royalties for being on that session.
Oh wow!
And so I'm checking that out. I'm still not sure that's the way that was, but it'd be great. Elvis was an amazing star.
Wow.
So you're saying you don't remember if you did a session with Elvis or just
No, I
the
don't remember
particular
doing
song?
it, but there's a lot of people I don't remember doing
The
sessions.
thing is,
Okay.
though,
It would have been overdubbed, you know.
Oh,
Okay,
would
where
have
he
been
wasn't there.
yeah, I know Sylvia, her big first hits. You sang harmony
Yeah.
on Drifter and Tumbleweed.
She used to do background sessions too. We worked in a group for other artists too.
Studio 23 Nashville presents Studio 23 Nashville Live, November 10th at World Music Nashville, featuring 2010 European Album of the Year and 2015 Country Music Association of Texas Artist of the Year, Bobby Marquez. Singer-songwriter extraordinaire Steve Kahn. From the 70s supergroup Orleans, Lance Hoppin. Nashville's favorite Cajun Americana artist, Les Kerr. Country Christian artist, Cherie Pepper. Pianist to the Stars, Mark T. Jordan. And jazz singer-songwriter Allison Kerr. Plus an all-star band. Tickets are just $15 and are available now at www.brownpapertickets.com. Just search the site for Studio 23 Nashville or World Music Nashville. Studio 23 Nashville Live is made possible by the Law Office of Lavelle Glanton, Expedia Cruise Ship Center Nashville West, and World Music Nashville.
Straighten up and find a right.
Now available, Come Out Swingin', the new CD by the Brian Cumming Jazz Quartet. Come Out Swingin' is available at studio23nashville.com and all major digital retailers.
Saying come out swinging.
Come Out Swingin' by the Brian Cumming Jazz Quartet. Get yours today.
Welcome back to Studio 23. I'm Bobby Tomberlin filling in this week for Jennifer Herron, and it's a pleasure to be here with Brian and this guy, Jim Glaser. You know, you could mention almost any icon from the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and this guy has worked with him. Like we mentioned, background singing on hits by Hank Williams Jr. and George Jones. But also, you have a great story about Patsy Cline and the first time that she played in Vegas.
Yes, Patsy called us and the brothers and said that she had a contract in Vegas and wanted us to come open the show for her and then do background on a couple of songs. So we'd heard about Vegas and the dry air out there, and that the thing you needed to do was go out a few days early and let yourself adjust. So we did that, but Patsy didn't, and she had laryngitis so bad she couldn't even talk. And so she had a little 45 RPM record player, and we put her records on there and started them, and she'd lip sync them for the first, I guess, 3 or 4 days. They loved her anyway. I mean, what a great person she was.
Another legendary act, Chris Christopherson. Do you remember the first time you saw Chris?
Well, that's funny. You know, I first saw him, he was a janitor over at Owen Bradley's large studio, Columbia A or whatever they called it. And I didn't know anything about him. And then found out he was a songwriter, and his publisher asked me if I would come in and sing harmony on a demo session with him. And he was so nervous doing that as the first time I've sung on a microphone, and so I was just really trying to phrase with him, not paying much attention to the songs. And after we got them done, so several of the songs that was on the session started to be recorded, For the Good Times, and finally
Help Me Make It Through the Night.
Help Me
Wasn't
Make
that
It
on
Through the
session?
Night, yeah. And so Tom Paul came to me and said, you were on this session, you knew all these songs, why didn't you bring them to me? And I said, you were in the bathroom.
The old story.
But eventually, when the brothers got back together, you did record one of Chris's songs, and it was a big, big old hit that you still hear today.
The funny thing is, when I was when I was on MGM as a solo artist, we had some pretty good records, and we were going in doing an album, and that's one of the songs we did. And I went out of town on a tour and came back in a couple of days, and MGM's office was closed and gone, and they had lost the trademark on the MGM logo, and they just closed everything up, and suddenly I was adrift.
So then you got back together, and then you were on Elektra Records,
Right.
and then you did recorded the song again.
And Jimmy Bowen was producing us, and I was kind of, the last couple of years there, 78 and 9, my friend Paul Govan, who lives in Texas, he and I were doing happy hours. But you got to do something. And he loved finger picking. So we worked that out a lot. And when the brothers recorded this Chris Christopherson song, we played finger picking guitar. And I like to listen to it now because I was really good back then, and I'm really messy right now on guitar. But I can say, yes, I could do it once. I could do it. But anyway,
What Christopherson song was it?
it
That-
was Loving Her Was Easier.
Okay.
Great song.
Man.
I've seen the morning burn golden on the mountain in the sky. Taken with the feeling of the freedom of an eagle when she flies. Turning on the world the way she smiled upon my soul as I lay dying. Hidden as the colors in the sunshine and the shadows of her eyes. Waking in the morning to the feeling of her fingers on my skin. Wiping out the traces of the people and the places that I've been. Teaching me that yesterday was something that I never thought I'd try. Talking of tomorrow and the money, love and time we have to spend. Loving her was easier than anything I'll ever do again. Coming close together with a feeling that I've never known before in my time. She ain't ashamed to be a woman, she ain't ashamed to be your friend. I don't know the answer to the easy way she's opened every door in my mind. But loving was as easy as believing it was never gonna end. Loving her was easier than anything I'll ever do again. Loving her was easier than anything I'll ever do again.
Wow.
And of course my fingers went on a trip while I was singing that.
I think you did. I think they did just fine. I'm telling you, that is so good. I hear that song all the time. It's
Beautiful song.
still played a lot. You know, great songs don't have expiration dates.
I was trying to think of that other song on that session, and Ray Stevens cut it, and I had a kind of an unusual harmony line. And he put that on his session, but I think it was somebody else we had the hit on that song.
How was it? Sunday Morning Coming Down.
Sunday Morning Coming Down, right?
So Ray cut it before Johnny Cash.
Yeah,
Wow, didn't know that.
yeah, he did, and it was getting played some, and then Cash came along with it, and he was perfect for the song, you know.
Speaking of Johnny Cash again, I remember you telling me one time that you were called to play guitar. No, wait a minute. You guys were in Vegas and he just showed up, right?
Who did?
Johnny Cash.
Yeah.
And what was the story about the Bonanza theme? He wanted you to play the...
Oh yeah, well I was playing Luther's guitar part, and Johnny got up on stage to guest with it, and was singing dun 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 dun. What is that? And so I went dun 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 ba da. Well, that wasn't quite where I thought the notes were, and it was the awful.
Oh,
And Johnny just laughed and laughed, and he wanted me to do it that way every night.
the wrong notes on the Bonanza.
That is so funny. You know, I was just thinking, you know, we talked about All Night Cafe being recorded by like 4 or 5 artists,
Yeah.
Running Gun recorded by 3 artists. That's so rare. Most songwriters, I mean, you're lucky if the song gets recorded one time. And you know, that happened with your song Woman, Woman. Have You Got Cheating on Your Mind? That song we mentioned was sampled by a rapper, T.I. It was one of the
Right.
biggest selling albums a couple of years ago. Engelbert Humperdinck recorded the song, Glenn Campbell, and of course the biggest hit was Gary Puckett and the Union
Right.
Gap.
And
What's the story behind
We'd
that
never
song?
heard, because this was like '67, and there weren't. I can't remember any other group that had unusual names like Gary Puckett and the Union Gap. And I remember when the Columbia single of that came across our desk in Nashville, and we didn't even know anybody had cut it. You know, that Jimmy Payne had a record on it, and so we called over to Columbia and we said, "What's a Union Gap?" And the secretary that answered said, "Hee, we don't know either, tee hee." They didn't know who it was either, but about 3 weeks later, we all knew who they were, you know.
Was that their first hit?
Yeah.
What's the story on Woman, Woman?
One night at the Opry, Mel Tillis, this was late for the later shows, and Mel Tillis asked me to come into a dressing room that was empty. He wanted to sing me a new song he'd written, and I was totally blown away and honored, of course, as you would be. And Mel sang "Ruby, Don't Take Your Love to Town,"
Oh my God.
and I could not believe how great that song was. Of course, he had the word contemplating in it, which I don't think Ruby, are you contemplating? I would have never dreamed of trying that.
Yeah.
So on the way home, I thought, I think I'll try to write a song about a guy who thinks his woman is cheating, and instead of calling her a name, I'll just say woman. And I pulled over and wrote the last verse, put it on an envelope, and threw it in the drawer where. And a month or so later, Jimmy Payne was looking for something to record, and I remembered that song, and I called Jane, and she dug it out of the drawer with all the other ones, and we spent a couple nights finishing the song, and then Jimmy cut it, and his record was the one that was played on the radio station in Los Angeles that
They heard.
that the Union Gap heard.
Did Jimmy start with the chorus the way the Gary Puckett version? Did he go,
Well, I should just jump in and say something really confidently, and I don't remember if he did or not.
You're confident about that?
I think he did though start with it, and that's the kind of thing that would be a producer's choice.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I know Owen did that when I was on Deccan MCA. He sometimes on the songs would have the title line first, you know, if it worked.
I actually saw Jerry Fuller, the producer of the Union Gap, at Glenn Campbell's memorial service, and I had never met Jerry, and I introduced myself and told him that I had, played some shows with you, and he said that Glenn Campbell was with him the day that they heard Jimmy Payne's version on the radio. And he said they actually went to the radio station.
I heard they did. They went to the radio
Glenn
station.
and Jerry Fuller went to the radio station.
In L.A.?
In L.A.
To find out.
And got the actual copy.
Got a copy of
Said,
it.
we want this record. And
Wow.
yeah, I meant to call you and tell you that.
Nice.
So,
So
here we
Glenn
are.
had gotten inspired at the same time?
Absolutely, both of them.
And-
And
and then
Glenn
recorded it.
recorded it too.
He
About
did.
the same
Yeah.
time? That same
Yeah.
67.
Unreal.
Whoa. So you want to do Woman, Woman?
Oh, well. Now, that song. I'll get my guitar out of tune so you won't notice my voice being out of tune. Woman, woman, have you got cheating on your mind? On your mind. Something's wrong between us that your laughter cannot hide, and you're afraid to let your eyes meet mine. And lately, when I love you, I know you're not satisfied. Have you got cheating on your mind? On your mind. I've seen the way men look at you when they think I don't see, and it hurts to have them think that you're that kind. But it's knowing that you're looking back that's really killing me. Woman, woman, have you got cheating on your mind? On your mind. A woman wears a certain look when she is on the move, and a man can always tell what's on her mind. I hate to have to say it, but that looks all over you. Woman, woman, have you got cheating on your mind? Oh, woman, woman, have you got cheating on your mind? On your mind.
Wow. Wow.
Could you see the cough drop in my mouth?
Wow.
Forgot to take the cough drop out.
I've never seen him perform that song when he hasn't received a standing ovation. And
It's just got so much
It's
power
so
in it. There's
powerful.
much
Amazing how many people still remember the song too. I mean,
Yeah.
God.
Well, Gary Parker, I haven't even heard Glenn Campbell, and what a great singer there. But Gary Parker really took
Oh,
it somewhere.
he really
That-
did.
What a voice.
Again, timeless song.
And that was their first hit, and they
Yeah.
had a bunch of good stuff after that. But yeah, I was wondering if you were going to try that extra high note. Maybe back in your 70s you could have
Yeah,
done
really,
that.
yeah.
But anyway, it just sounds great, and you put a lot of passion into
Well,
it.
I appreciate it.
And that was your idea. And you had the title and everything.
Yeah, had it all.
And you had it in a drawer for a month before Jimmy got a
Well,
hold
there are a
of
lot
it.
of ideas in there. I don't know if any of the other ones ever amounted to anything, but that one did.
And just
Well,
think,
sure.
if it weren't for Mel Tillis, that song wouldn't exist,
Well, that's
probably.
true.
That's a great tribute. Did you ever get to tell Mel that?
I'm sure I did, but I don't remember.
We've done several shows with Mel's daughter, Carrie
his daughter,
Tillis.
yeah.
And he tells that story, and that's kind of cool. With,
Yeah.
having her on
Yeah.
stage. And
That's another great example, like you're saying, is a lot of the artists who were writers, and often people don't know
right.
how
Well,
good
Mel
they were.
Tillis,
Mel
I
and
mean,
Marty
he
and
wrote
Johnny.
Detroit City and
Yeah.
so many of those.
Many beautiful songs.
Pierce, Ray Price. Didn't Ray cut a song? He cut a song of yours too.
He did.
One time.
It was in an album. It was called Sunday, but I never did hear if it came out or not.
Oh, it came out. That's cool when you have so many songs.
you
You
don't
don't even
even
realize.
No,
it.
it's when you're that old that you don't remember.
Well, I'm glad that Bobby has been paying attention and doing all these shows with you and hearing the stories.
I'm just a fan.
He's an incredible person. He knows more about the business than I ever did,
Oh,
and
come on.
continues to keep up on things. It's amazing. I don't have to read Billboard anymore.
Let me tell you something. One of the highlights, I've been blessed to do a lot of cool things in this business, but this is one of the coolest, getting to share a stage with someone like Jim. And, there I was, in Luverne, Alabama, the disc jockey. My dad and I, we went to see Hank Williams Jr. and Tom Paul and the Glaser brothers at that Garrett Coliseum in Montgomery. And that was the first time I saw these guys, saw Jim. And I remember then, the crowd just went crazy, and I never would have dreamed at that time I'd be sitting here with you interviewing this guy. And it's been one of the highlights for me. I
Well, I
appreciate your
appreciate
talent,
that.
and I appreciate your friendship.
Thank you for that.
You bet. We're going to Texas to do a show.
That's
We just
great.
can't
Next
get enough
month.
of it. I just can't quit it. I got to keep doing it.
Well, it's great to have Bobby there to lean on and take a breath
Oh.
off between songs.
I don't have to think anymore. I don't know. What do you think, Bobby?
What do you think?
And he's always right. He always has the best thing.
That is great. But I just love how broad your whole career is with you as an art. You just came naturally with your brothers. You came to Nashville. You met Marty Robbins, and then you're a recording artist with your brothers, and then you're a solo artist, and you're writing all this time. And the business acumen in the family, all of a sudden, here's a label, here's a studio, here's a publishing company. You published one of the greatest songs of the '60s, the Glenn
Ever,
Campbell
really?
version. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the most played songs.
Most performed song,
most-
pop
yeah,
and country, 2
ever.
years in a row. That's
And it changed country music as
It
much
really
as
did.
Christopherson or something. That.
Yeah, really to recognize
Yeah.
John Hartford's talent.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
really says a lot.
I mean, it's
Amazing.
just amazing how big this all is. It just hanging
lot of
out at the
fun.
Opry and
Yeah,
talking
El
about-
Paso. He sang the high harmony on El Paso. You were there when Ring of Fire. I'm telling you, man.
I mean, this
Write
guy-
a book. Write a
yeah,
book.
yeah. We're gonna have to help him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, we will.
It'll be called "I Can't Remember."
But I can't.
Yeah.
Oh, I wrote a book. It was a fiction though, and it's called "Drowning on the Third Coast." Nashville
Ooh.
was called the Third Coast.
So it's a story about Nashville.
It's about the
Yeah.
business on the road, and I wanted to
Yeah.
kind of put down what the road was like before it all changed. Back
that's
in the
great.
'60s and '70s. And
This has been published.
yeah, I published it myself.
Drowning
you
on
can,
the Third Coast.
Yeah, and you can get that book and also your CD. And what's your website? Just Jim Glaser.
JimGlaser.com.
Yeah, so
He's
order
a
that
mind guy.
book. Order that CD.
Well, it has been a tremendous pleasure to have Bobby and Jim here on the show today. I have been soaked in the glories of the history of country music, and it's a treat. I'm so glad to be here. It's so great to hear you and to hear these songs. Thank you so much, Bobby, for being part of it.
Hey, thank you.
It's a
You do
treat
it.
Thank you, Jim.
for us too, for me to be here with
Me
both of
too,
you.
and you do a great job, and I really appreciate your talent too.
Appreciate you'll have a great show in Texas. Drive
Yeah.
safely or fly safely, whatever.
Fly
it is.
Fly.
safely and then drive.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
right.
yeah, that's Texas for you.
Yeah.